Okay, we're back. Hi, I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Coordinating Director for Humanities team, and this program is called Catalyzing an Awakened World. Each of the leaders on this panel are involved in powerful spiritual outreach that is truly contributing to what this panel describes. They are global leaders involved in global outreach. They each have the gift of keen wisdom, clarity, insight, and communication that allow them to connect with people around the world in different countries, cultures, religious traditions, and other diversity. Catalyzing an Awakened World is an important theme for Global Oneness Day, so we put together this very special panel. I'm going to go right into panel member introductions. I'll introduce them one at a time, and then we'll go straight to a recording by Neale Donald Walsch. It's brief, and then to this live discussion with this panel here. First, the Reverend Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith is the founder of this and spiritual director of Agape International Spiritual Center in Los Angeles, a trans-denominational multicultural community where music holds a significant place in the weekly celebrations, classes, and conferences. An award-winning author and internationally renowned spiritual teacher, Michael has appeared in his own PBS special, The Answer Is You, has been a guest on Oprah, Larry King Live, 2020, and Tavis Smiley, and was featured in The Secret. Beckwith is also the co-founder and president of the Association for Global New Thought, AG&T, and convener of the Synthesis Dialogues with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you for welcoming me back. It's a joy and honor to be with you and the esteemed panelists.
Thank you. And next, Andrew Harvey is founder and director of the Institute of Sacred Activism, an international organization focused on inviting concerned people to take up the challenge of our contemporary global crisis by becoming inspired, effective, and practical agents of institutional and systemic change in order to create peace and sustainability. Sacred activism is a transforming force of compassion and action that is born of a fusion of deep spiritual knowledge, courage, love, and passion with wise, radical action in the world. The large-scale practice of sacred activism can become an essential force for preserving and healing the planet and its inhabitants. Welcome, Andrew.
Oh, what a pleasure to be with you all. Thank you so much for having me on.
And Andrew is calling in from India. So, Andrew, special thanks for being up at this hour to participate.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Panache Desai is a contemporary spiritual teacher and inspirational visionary whose gift of vibrational transformation and message of love and self-acceptance has drawn thousands of people from around the world to his seminars and workshops. Not aligned with any religious or spiritual tradition, he empowers people to free themselves of pain, suffering, sadness, and self-limiting beliefs. He has committed his life to being a vibrational catalyst, empowering humanity in the deepest states of connection and awareness, and helping people everywhere to directly experience divine consciousness for themselves. Welcome, Panache.
Hi, Steve. Hi, guys. It's a great honor and privilege to be here on Oneness Day, and a happy Oneness Day to everyone that's tuning in from around the world.
Happy Global Oneness Day, and certainly I feel the same way. A total honor to be with you all. We're going to begin by listening to a short recording with Neale Donald Walsch, and then we're going to go straight to questions. And let's go ahead and begin this audio of Neale Donald Walsch now. Welcome to Global Oneness Day, Neale.
Thank you, Steve. It's wonderful to be here. This is an extraordinary event, a glorious opportunity for people all over the world to really get connected with higher truth and the grander reality that we all know at some level inside of us, but these reminders can be very powerful. So thank you for letting me be part of this.
Well, it's great to have you with us, Neale. Neale, how important is it that we awaken the world of oneness? This, of course, is the whole function and purpose of Global Oneness Day.
Well, it's not important at one level, but it's extremely important at another. It depends on how we're looking at it. The purpose of life, of course, has nothing to do with anybody else but ourselves. Your life is, in the largest sense, when I say ourselves, I mean the capital S. But when we think of ourselves as individuations of divinity, then we find ourselves yearning for and just wanting, desiring a deeper sense of connection and a deeper sense of reflection. That is, that the whole of life, all human beings everywhere would begin to reflect the highest notion that each individual has about who and what God is and what life is really about. when we combine those higher notions, we find that more people hold such high notions, the vast majority of people, as a matter of fact, but they may not be aware that others are holding the same idea about life. So my experience has been, traveling around the world the past 15 or 20 years, that people in the main are really not as clear as they might be about the number of people that are connected in the same way with the same thoughts and the same ideas and the same huge desires to express and experience God and divinity throughout the earth. So when we work toward placing oneness as part of the reality on the planet, we send a message to life itself and to all people everywhere that their own highest thoughts are quite possibly the thoughts that are absolutely true. That, sometimes people think that these ideas are too good to be true. So what we look for are reminders, markers, people who can tell us what is really so. Now, here's what's happening these days. We've always had these markers and these wonderful messengers as well. We've had people from the beginning of time, known and not so well known, who have sent us these messages, but never at a time in human history where we have the opportunity for instaparency, what I call instant transparency or instant communication. Today with the Internet and the ability to communicate across vast distances to vast numbers of people, we have an opportunity to affect the global consciousness in a single stroke, in a single moment. That's what makes even the smallest voice, or what appears to be the smallest voice, actually very, very powerful. So how important is it? It depends on what your view of the world and your vision for life is. If your view of the world and your vision for life is that it could be a reflection of the highest thoughts we ever held about divinity, it can be very important to engage in this wonderful process of sharing the message of oneness with all of humanity in everything that you think and say and do.
And certainly you've dedicated your life to this purpose, Neil, and so good to have you with us on the program. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for asking me.
Okay, I want to again thank Neil for being part of the program, and now we're going to go straight to questions with our panel. I want to start by just sharing again, I'm very honored to be here with each of you on this panel. This is a truly remarkable panel. Oneness is a key theme in each of your work, and so I thought maybe we could start by going inside your work, and maybe you could tell us about how you speak about oneness and even embody it. And Michael, I don't know if you would like to start.
Oh, it's fine with me. I just want to, when I think about the two other individuals on the panel, I'm just, it amounts to a number of years and years and years of prayer and meditation and sacred service that, of course, is priceless and is real and creates its own spiritual dynamics. So I'm just happy to be here. As you indicated in your introduction of me, I'm the founder of Agape International Spiritual Center, and this year we're celebrating our 28th year of being in community, a very powerful, inclusive community that everyone is there. Sometimes they call us the United Nations of spiritual communities because you'll have your Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, Jews, everyone's there. All the demographic of human society is sitting there on a Wednesday night or a Sunday morning, worshiping the one presence, the one power, the one life, whatever name we choose to call it, in a spirit of celebration and in a spirit of not begging or beseeching a reluctant deity to give us anything, but celebrating that everything has been given, but must be accessed, must be discovered, must be cultivated, and ultimately expressed. So our community embraces the unity and the oneness of us all, and serves as a hospital for people to have their wounds mended, and then secondly as a birthing field of vision, each being beginning to discover, what choices they made when they incarnated to make a difference on the planet before they left. And then that gets into a much more spiritual activism, discovering why you are here, what meaning does your individual life have, and be in the world or be in your vision while you're in the world. So it's not just sitting around trying to get enlightened. It is waking up to our intrinsic oneness so that we're in the world making a difference with our gifts, talents, and capacities, so that when we see the issues of the planet, whether it be hate, bigotry, whatever the case may be, wars, rumors of wars, separation. We have to find our place with our unique gifts in the world to make a difference. So it's not just sitting around contemplating the navel, going into higher states of being, but going into those states, but making them real through action. And so that's what the community is about. So there's a strong component for healing, strong component for understanding the fundamental principles of reality, and a strong component for service. And those are the dynamics. So, of course, all of this begins with the encouragement of spiritual practice, so that sense of oneness and connectivity and self-love and appreciation is not merely a theory, but through practice we become candidates for insight that allows us to actually become aware of what the soul already knows, that oneness is a principle. You know, it's not a wish or a hope or a fancy thought. It's a principle of reality that is covered up by the filters of that sense of separation. So that would be my beginning, just entry into this conversation.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you, Michael. We'll just open the space here for Andrew and Panache. I know, again, these speakers, we could give 2 hours to each of them. So, you know, we're putting 3 into 1 hour. So, Andrew, do you want to come in?
Yes. Thank you so much, Michael.
My joy. It's good to be with you.
Evidence of all of the great mystical, lovely to hear you. Look, when you wake up, you see that reality is one. It is an overwhelming experience of unity with everything. When I woke up, I was 36, and I was in Paris, and I saw out of my window this vast white light covering everything and dissolving everything, and it nearly dissolved myself, but left me just awake enough to register the glory of everything vanishing into the divine light consciousness. Then something equally miraculous happened, which is that everything reappeared, but this time it was soaked with that divine consciousness, that light. And that experience gave me indelibly an understanding that reality is all sacred, holy, unimaginably holy. From that, a series of experiences led me to understand that it was not enough to have the experience of the transcendent and the immanent being one. That is not awakening complete. Because once you've had that experience, what you have to do is to open to the reality of this world in its agony, in its heartbreak, in its injustice, in its craziness, in its cruelty, and in its beauty and its power and its potential. And that led me to understand that having an awakening experience without putting the laws of that awakening experience, the laws of interdependence and compassion, into radical action, especially in an age as devastating as ours, when we're facing overwhelming crises which could very well ensure the extinction of the human race, would be a fundamental mistake of the highest kind. About a few years later, I had an experience of the Christ when my father was dying, and I saw the resurrected Christ and was infused by this enormous passionate love. And then went out of the church where it happened to see an armless and legless beggar who was placed in a puddle, and I realized, looking into his eyes, that he was the crucified Christ in reality, the burning forests, the tortured animals, the terribly polluted seas, the unspeakable vanity and narcissism of the majority of the rich, the terrible way in which our culture has created an oasis of privilege for very few, while billions of people, and I'm in India now, so I can see it all around me, live in unbelievable poverty. And that experience forged sacred activism. because I understood at a visceral level from that experience that a great deal of modern spirituality was hopelessly narcissistic, and that the New Age, for all of its real achievements, had in fact created a kind of subtle mind pollution, deepening the narcissism rather than healing it. And so I went on a 20-year journey to really formulate, as far as I was able, with the grace of the divine, what sacred activism needs to be for our time. And I wrote a book called The Hope, and I founded an institute, and I've been traveling all over the world now, helping a global movement into birth. And it is birthing. It's not going nearly fast enough. We're in a very dire situation. The news of the environment is getting progressively worse, far worse than even the doomsayers of 10 years ago were saying. There's very little progress being made on healing the religious divides, on making our economic system more merciful and more generous towards the poor. And it is time, I think, for everybody to understand that oneness is not a concept. It is a visceral cellular experience of unity with all beings, not only with all human beings, but with all animals, and with all plants, and with all stones, with the whole creation. And at the moment, the creation, the mother, is being destroyed. And to meet that destruction, two things are needed. And this is the message of sacred activism, this is the message of my work. First, all of us, and this includes myself, need to go very much more profoundly into the experience of unity so that it saturates and soaks our every thought and word and being. And that demands very deep commitment, a much deeper commitment than I see usually when I'm out on the road talking to people, a much deeper commitment to spiritual practice so that the divine can initiate us at the most primordial level to its truth of indivisible unity. And the second thing that is demanded is that we must, all of us, not just enjoy this experience, but use it to become so strong and so vibrant and so passionate and so fearless that we are able to stand up together and say an overwhelming no to the structures of cold evil that are destroying our world, and an overwhelming yes to the birthing truths that are now happening, the birthing powers that are being born, the new solutions that are being made. And this isn't just something that we say yes with in a group of people or in an amazing church such as Michael does with all the outreach that it does. It needs a global mass movement of love in action that is non-violent but very, very organized. Occupy was a very small beginning, hopelessly disorganized and fantastically narcissistic in certain ways, but very promising because it showed at least that people were beginning to wake up from the coma of denial that has afflicted our culture and continues to, the terrible passivity in which we're in. But this is not going to be enough. We need, on a worldwide scale, a mass movement of love in action inspired by unity and dedicated to the ending of the systems that are now keeping us tragically passive in the face of overwhelming destruction. And we need to be infused by a great deal of joy and courage as we do so. Time is running out, I believe, for the human race. I don't think we have a lot of time in which to make this movement real. And my appeal to all of you listening is that you take very seriously what is really at stake now, which is nothing less than this. If we do not have this kind of movement with responsible and mature and wise spiritual and political and economic and artistic leaders all coming together to inspire a mass movement everywhere, if we don't have a movement like this soon, we are going to let this world and the creation die in unimaginable suffering and agony. So oneness for me is never a concept. It's not something that I use to cheer myself up in. It's a demand, it's a challenge, it's an immense inspiration, and above all, it's a cry from the heart of the Divine Mother to all of us to get real about injustice and our responsibility for it, and to go through a massive spiritual transformation so that we can become strong and wise and clear enough to be the instruments of the birth of a new world. This crisis is both a great death and a great birth. And the great birth is the birth of oneness in action that I call sacred activism, and to which my life is dedicated. So thank you very much.
Gosh, thank you, Andrew, and thank you again, Michael. Two very powerful visions and invitations. So thank you so much. Panache, let's bring you in here. Please share your work, of course, is very much about oneness, how you discuss and embody oneness.
I think that the solution to every plight that we have in the world is, in fact, the embodying of oneness. I too agree that oneness isn't just a concept, it's actually a state of being that's completely accessible to us all. However, what I've discovered is that the conditioning and societal norms that are placed upon us keep us distanced from our natural state of being. And in my work, I've been lovingly inviting people to come back to a place of acceptance of their natural state, recognizing that every single facet of who they are is not a mistake. That in truth, everything that is arising and subsiding in every moment is nothing more than a unique manifestation of that same singular energy or that same singularity that we are all a part of. And this work has taken so many different forms, but in its deepest form, it has been a vibrational embracing of our humanity, recognizing that our humanity in its entirety is in fact a doorway to our divinity. And that when a human being comes into alignment with all that they are, they unleash something that I've come to call their soul signature. And their soul signature is that unique emanation of oneness that they are here to embody in the world. My journey too began with a direct experience of the divine. And quite honestly, this infinite ocean of energy was so all-encompassing and all-consuming that the aftermath of that was just one of needing to move forward and to be a messenger to let people know that they're not what they're being told, that ultimately fear isn't the norm, and that actually the more we wake up through accepting and embracing who we are, the more we can then spearhead initiatives like Andrew and like Michael and begin to actively take that beingness into action, into our communities, into the world, to unfold a greater end that is already unfolded. And so, again, you know, the blessing of oneness is that, and what you'll find in these panels is that it's the energy that's expressing. And the funny thing is that it's the energy that's expressing in every different form that's here, articulating it. And so as you navigate this day, my invitation to all of you is to have the yearning and the willingness to live in the radical, profound acceptance of all that you are, and then to apply that to a cause that you believe in and that you love. Because that's how fundamentally the world is going to shift, or that's how we're going to remember that the world has already shifted. So it's an honor to be here with both Andrew and Michael and you, Steve, and everyone that's tuning in from around the world. And let's live our soul signature and apply it to shift the planet in the way that we know that it can be shifted.
Wow, truly powerful. Thank you, Panache, and it's such a pleasure to have you here with us. With this panel, rather than asking a specific next question that would bound you in a sense, fence you in, let me open it up to, maybe 3 or 4 things, and then maybe you all can come back with the thing that you feel you'd like to share next. One would be an invitation to people that are listening, things that they can do to catalyze an awakened world, and you've all touched on that already, but if you wanted to go deeper. 2 would be, of course, we all speak to many people who are discouraged on this journey, especially in this day and age where there's Ebola and ISIS and so many things in headlines, things that you would say to people that are discouraged. 3, other invitations you'd like to extend. And then 4, just your own inner journey, your own process for speaking about and embodying oneness that people could learn from. So maybe we could go back, Michael, if you wanted to start with what you'd like to address next.
Beautiful. First of all, I love being on the phone with Andrew and Panache, and I think one of the things that I love about it, when I hear the resonance of their voice, it's easy to tell that they have had that openness and that awareness, because there are many people that speak about this that are speaking about it, but not necessarily speaking from it, and so that they can be momentarily inspirational and encouraging. Something happens when you listen to someone who's actually seen it, and all of us have had those powerful moments of being captured by the divine presence, and so it's just wonderful. I don't even have to hear the words; I can just feel the dynamic behind that. I think one of the things I want to offer is that we're not speaking about saving the world. We're speaking about embracing an emerging paradigm, because we don't want to save the world that we read about, the world that's full of homophobia and bigotry and racism and separation and greed and narcissism, and we're not trying to save that world. We're actually serving the world that each of us has had a glimpse of in our own awakening. When I was slayed in the spirit, so to speak, a number of years ago, and I died, and I could see the presence of such beauty everywhere, and felt the total love of the presence entering into every cell of my being, and it totally shifted my perception and totally shifted my destiny on the planet. I was aware that I wasn't going to save the world as it is. There's actually a world that we're all seeing, that we're seeking to download, seeking to express through our action, our word, our conversation. And so I want to move people away from trying to save the world, because they'll get burnt out, and they'll bump up against and end up being angry and resistant towards the seeming negative things that they see in the world. What we're seeking to do is to embrace this larger paradigm and to express it. And then, because this larger paradigm of the presence is way more powerful than the limited thought forms that have condensed themselves as a disease and separation and greed and avarice, is way more powerful. So when you have individuals who are actually having this kind of awareness, it actually assists everyone in waking up and remembering, as Panache would say, their soul signature, remembering the unique self, remembering who and what they really are. And then, as Andrew was reminding us, and again, we have to then move that into some kind of action. It has to be an activity. I always teach that action without vision is chaos, but vision without action is a fantasy. And so you have to have both. You have to be captured by this tremendous vision of what we catch in our prayer and our meditation and our silent musing with the Spirit. But then that has to be moved into some kind of direct action. And that's what I call our gifted area, our particular talent. And for me, I mean, it became quite clear, again, a couple of years ago, I was in Maui. And I had a most debilitating experience I think I've had in my adult life. I went into the darkness, and I could feel the agony and the pain of the entire human species. It was so debilitating to me that even my wife was very, very concerned about me. And it took me a while to come back. When I would close my eyes, I would go into it. When I'd open my eyes, I would be somewhat stable. And it took about 6 months to really give myself permission to stay in a human incarnation, because the pain was so debilitating about the anguish that people experience every day from that sense of separation and the fear, and then the fear-mongering that comes from the media throughout the course of the world for the utilization of controlling us and keeping us from our creativity. But it left me with, ultimately, a greater sense of humility where this presence is concerned, whatever name we choose to call it. There was a moment in this particular experience where I felt so infinitesimally small and the presence so massive that I felt almost insignificant. And then later on it shifted, and I realized that my life was an emanation of this immensity. And it birthed a deep compassion, a humility, and then a greater access to power, with that power not being siphoned by the ego, because it had been smashed in this debilitation that I was going through. And so I say that to say that we are under siege. There is a tremendous crisis on the planet. But this crisis can lead to, as we see in crises that have happened, and I spoke about this in the opening of this, the crisis can lead to a letting go of the filters of separation. We see this after tsunamis. We see this after certain world crises where there's a temporary releasing of the filter of separation, and people come into compassion and kindness. But it's temporary. And I'm holding a space so that we as humanity can sustain this sense of opening, of awe and wonder of the presence that we can't create with our mind. We can't make it happen, but we can be available to it. And it is this kind of availability on a regular basis, which is the work that we're all seeking to do on the planet, that will create enough people. And I agree with Andrew, the time is running out. Enough individuals that have captured that and put aside bracketed their own opinions and are supping at the divine table of this presence, that we can make a difference of the emerging paradigm, this paradigm of love and compassion beginning to express itself. What we're speaking about here this morning is not conjecture, it's real. Each of us have had moments of being bathed in this awareness, and we don't need any scientific validation about it. It shifted our character, our point of view, and we're just inviting individuals to go into deep practice, and then allow that practice to come into some deep action, so that the emerging paradigm becomes more visible, and the dying paradigm. We don't want to save the world. We want to let that paradigm dissolve. It served its purpose. It can be that tombstone can be the stepping stone to a greater experience of heaven on earth, if we allow it. And I feel it in my bones that this is possible, even though the systemic issues of our day would say that we've run out of time. But with an insight, a timeless, eternal insight on a global scale, miracles can take place. So I just offer that into the field with us this morning.
Boy, after each of you speak, I'm tempted to take a minute and just breathe into the wisdom shared. Truly amazing, Michael. Thank you, Andrew. Why don't we just go in the same sequence if you want.
Yes, I love what Michael said, but I think one of the things that I would emphasize, and I loved, of course, what Panache said, is that we, as spiritual leaders, tend to underestimate the enormous power of the thought forms that you and I have seen through. These thought forms have created overwhelmingly powerful systems in which the very wealthy have almost total control, and control of politics, control of media, and are seemingly hell-bent on strip mining the planet and reducing it to ash. So while it is true that there is a wholly new vision being born, it's also true that it is at this moment extraordinarily disempowered, given the fact that these structures of cold evil are really deeply entrenched. And we must never forget that, otherwise we become, I think, sentimental about spirituality. Spirituality has to be combined with a fundamental realism. So I'm going to address this, and I'm going to really lay it on the line to everybody listening, that what is demanded, and I think it is demanded now, of all of us who have seen the great vision of oneness and also felt what Michael felt and what I felt, and I'm sure Panache has felt, the absolutely horrific suffering of a world potentially going extinct, and not just human beings, but the seas, the fish, millions of species. Half of wildlife in the last 40 years has been destroyed, and the destruction continues apace. What is required is that all of us, I think, combine 5 kinds of service, really combine them and fuse them together. The first service is to the divine, the presence, the source, by whatever name you call it. We are not going to get through this crisis by human intelligence. We are only going to get through this crisis through being directly illuminated by the divine, given the wisdom and the vision to go forward. So how you turn in service to the divine is through thanksgiving and adoration and prayer and meditation. And we all need to do a great deal more of that with a great deal more focus and intensity and faith and passion. The second kind of service is service to oneself, and not in the dreary, sometimes hideously narcissistic New Age way in which people just pamper themselves and go on endless yoga retreats, but on real service so that you can become an instrument of this divine vision. And this service requires really fundamentally 5 kinds of practice. It requires cool practices because you're going to need to stay calm as the world is rent apart in this massive death-birth process. It requires hot practices because you're going to need to keep your heart vibrant with the energy of this tremendous vision of oneness that Panache has so beautifully described. You're going to need physical practices because this energy that is coming in to try and wake us up and empower us is a very intense energy. It's coming straight from the heart of the motherhood of God. It's a fire energy, and it needs to be held in the body. And that's one of the reasons why I love Agape, because of the dancing and the vitality and the vibrancy and the music. That's so important. So choose a spiritual, physical discipline like yoga or Reiki or sacred dance that really enables you to irrigate all of your being and make it strong with this new sacred energy of oneness. The fourth kind of practice that's going to be needed is shadow work, which the New Age has not been very good at, in fact been pathetic at. And that shadow work means that you really do have to look at the ways in which you collude, you and I and everyone collude with this system, keep it going by our materialism, by our narcissism, by our fear, and really do very serious, grueling work on yourself in God and with God to try and clear that so that your instrument can be as clean as possible. And the fifth kind of practice that everybody's going to need to do is prayer. Nobody... And this is one of the reasons why I've always admired Michael, because he comes from a tradition of passionate prayer. Prayer is an immense power of oneness. And I don't think many people in the worlds that I visit, in the spiritual worlds all over, have yet got to the depths of that power. So if you combine those 5 kinds of practices, you make yourself an instrument of this passion, unity, energy. The third kind of practice is really to see the whole world in the vision of oneness and to serve all beings, all human beings, whatever their color or race or sexuality, but also all sentient beings, because at this moment we are in a massive genocide of the animals. I very rarely hear spiritual teachers talk about the animals, and that is something that causes me personally tremendous grief, because we've slaughtered half of the wildlife in the last 40 years. We're in a massive genocide that's going on of the elephants and of the leopards and of the snow lions. We are snow leopards, and we are also, of course, slaughtering 57 billion animals every year to feed our tables, often in conditions of appalling cruelty. This is inviting a tsunami of black karma against the human race, and unless we stop this massive, horrific slaughter and destruction of the habitats of the animals, we are signing our own death warrant. The fourth service is to really stop imagining that you're already doing real work in the world, and really allow yourself to have both the vision of oneness and the vision of heartbreak that Michael described. You've got to be ravaged by the glory and ravaged by the suffering to be able to participate fully in the truth of oneness. And in the fourth service, what happens is that you truly see that unless you turn up in a vigorous, radical way in your own world, in your own community, doing something real about something you really care about that is really at stake in the real world, in this real exploding crisis, you are just playing patty cake with reality. And what I advise everybody to do, and this has really helped, I think, a lot of people, hundreds of thousands of people, is not to follow your bliss. I think we've had an awful lot of people following what they imagine to be bliss, which is just really the hyped-up ego's fantasy, not the real, authentic, divine bliss of authentic experience. I'm asking people to follow their heartbreak. I'm asking everybody to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, surround themselves by the great peace of the divine, and then allow themselves to have a taste of what Michael experienced in Maui and what I've experienced thousands of times, and I'm sure Panache has experienced, and really ask themselves one question. What of all of these causes that I can see demand my attention, what of all of these causes really breaks my heart the most? What do I hardly dare bear thinking about because it makes me so, so sad? I've found that when you ask yourself that question, you're guided by God to the cause that you will always have the most passion for, because it's the one that breaks your heart the most. And if you bring the joy and the bliss and the power that comes out of your vision of oneness and unite it to the heartbreak, you actually become an instrument of the Mother's working in reality. And the second thing that I advise people to do, and if you go to my website you can see that there are hundreds of groups all over the world, is to create networks of grace. I had a vision in which I saw 2 scrolls be unrolled in the sky, and one said, "Joy is the power," and the other said, "Networks of grace." Networks of grace are groups of between 6 to 15 people who meet in local communities, who love each other, encourage each other, dine together, pray together, meditate together, and undertake real radical work dedicated to a cause in their local community that needs addressing. And this is the way I believe in which the great grassroots revolution of love in action is going to be organized. To have more details on that, if you want to go to my website, that would be wonderful. The fifth kind of service is service to the birth, this great birth that Michael and Panache are talking about. But you're not serving this birth in an emotional way. You're really looking at, what do you invest in? What kind of lifestyle do you have? How big is your carbon footprint? How are you really in your life walking your talk? And how are you voting? How are you really taking political choices seriously? Because we may think that these systems are going to dissolve, but they're not going to dissolve. They're going to fight to hold on to power, and in that fight they might very well destroy the planet. So we've got to be very politically savvy. We've got to make the right political choices, vote the right people in, really see that this agenda gets into politics, into the media, into all the influential parts of society before it is too late and we all go up in smoke. So those are the 5 kinds of service that I believe are really important. I think Michael's wonderful vision of generosity and visionary truth is absolutely beautiful, as always beautifully expressed. I think what Panache is talking about is extremely important. But I don't think that any naivete of power should ever be entertained at this moment. I don't think these structures are going to dissolve. I think we need to become sacred activists, visionaries of oneness that dare to put their hearts, minds, wallets, lives, energies on the line to secure a possible radiant future for humanity. It's not inevitable, it's profoundly threatened, and we need to get going right now. This is what I most deeply believe, and every day confirms it.
Wow, thank you, Andrew. And again, Andrew's calling in from India. It's quite late there. Very powerful perspectives there. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, Panache, if you could come in, please.
Well, I'm actually sitting here just looking out of my window, just in absolute awe of what I'm seeing. And there's what the divine's made, which are trees and animals and plants and nature and human beings and everything that is organic and still in alignment, still living in a sense of harmony. And then there's what we as a species in our plea to be in some way superior have created as a way of validating our own insignificance. And I think that in the middle of both of those two worlds is what both of my esteemed colleagues are speaking about. That right now on this planet there are two forms of crises. There's a very legitimate crisis which we must all address as citizens and inhabitants of this wonderful, lush paradise of a planet that we inhabit. And there's another form of crisis which is completely manipulated through the media and has a monetary agenda where a problem is created so that a solution at a later date can be solved. And my sense is that the more we commit the most radical revolutionary act that any human being can commit, which is to come into a place of acceptance of self, at that point we begin to disengage from this need that we have as human beings for significance and superiority, and we begin to once again align with what the divine created, which I believe has a future. That which is natural and organic and that which is of the earth as demonstrated by ancient civilizations sustains us and feeds us not just physically, mentally, and emotionally, but spiritually. And so I wholeheartedly agree with both Andrew and Michael because it's important now to take that acceptance and that practice and to apply it to a tangible, practical cause. And may that cause be the perpetuation of that which is already natural. May that be a disengaging from the mass media, the fear-based agenda that perpetuates crises just for monetary gain. Because again, if we could consciously live in a state of non-compliance, if every human being actually opted out of every existing structure and system, they would have no choice but to collapse. It is our participation in these very systems, and it is our willingness to live a life of comfort and not engage in that which is uncomfortable and that which is the unknown that is keeping us enslaved in a prison of our own making. Our comfort zone is a prison of our own making. And the bars are our own fears and our own unexplored, immature aspects of personality and our own unexpressed aspects and fearful aspects of self. It is so important now that we turn the lens of awareness on ourselves because we are the world. And I believe, Steve and Michael and Andrew, that actually what we're doing on this call is laying a blueprint for that. Absolutely. It's time to get off your asana. It's time to be engaged, and it's time to be engaged from the perspective that that which is real has a future, that which is natural has a reason and a purpose, and it is that which is going to bring us forward, and it's that which is going to allow us to escape our comfort zone and to basically engage in this revolution that we're in the midst of, and to come out of the other side where we recognize each other as divine beings.
Wow, I want to say it's just been a total pleasure to moderate this panel. These incredibly powerful perspectives that have been shared. What occurs to me is there are many paths to the mountaintop, and we're hearing in great detail about several of these paths. Two things are being emphasized in what each of you are sharing. The aspect of our inner journey, this whole, as you're talking about embracing our own divine presence, an inner journey that brings on that experience, where we live in that experience. And then the second aspect of spirituality in action, of that we're not meditating in a cave. This is not just about a yoga class. That this is serious, that we are all one, and it's time to really stand up, breathe as one, live as one, and become engaged in things that tug at our heart. So I just wanted to give those few words to just express my gratitude for what you all have shared. Could each of you take a minute or two to just share closing remarks and a website where people can go to follow you and your work. Michael, if you want to begin.
Beautiful. Again, I just appreciate being on the line with my brothers here. It's very powerful, and it just has the dynamic of a kind of a energizing for me. Not that I was burnt out or tired.
Yes.
It's very nice. And in terms of my website, you can go to individuals could go to agapelive.com, AGAPELIVE.com, and or michaelbernardbeckwith.com, and see what the community is up to in terms of our sacred service days, in terms of our meditation days, and the celebration that continues throughout the course of the week. And I'm just inspired being with my brothers this morning. And one of the things we've been working with at Agape is recently is don't ask what do you want, ask what do you want to be. What is it that you really want to be? What kind of being do you want to be? What characters do you want to? What characteristics and qualities do you want to activate in your soul that you can deliver to the world for this time in human history and beyond? So come out of just what you want, what you think you want, because oftentimes wanting comes from a state of immaturity and a bombardment of a materialistic, consumer-driven society. You think you want something, but you really don't. What do you want to be? You know, what inside is aching to express itself. And so I think, to a degree, all of us have spoken along those lines, and then combining that with the fact that it's a mandate and it's necessary for us to become who we're meant to be at this time in human history. And perchance that's why we incarnated during this time of crisis, to be here, to wake up, to be behind enemy lines, so to speak, and to wake up and to find our particular action to take, our particular gift to share at this time in human history, and so that our life is not lived in vain, and that when we exit the body temple, when the body temple sheds itself, you know, we will have done what we said we were going to do before we got here. So it is my joy to be with you, Andrew, and you, Panache, and I just feel a great synergy this morning.
And Michael leads Agape again. To follow Michael and his work. Thank you, Michael. And Andrew.
Yes, I would love it if you are inspired by what I'm saying, if you'd read my book, The Hope, and if you'd look at my website, andrewharvey.net, and you'll see what I'm up to. What I would like to say is that I find it absolutely thrilling to be alive in this time. I find it thrilling for two reasons. First, that this time is, for me, a perpetual bitch slap to my ego. It's constantly making me rethink, reimagine everything. And I find that thrillingly exciting. And it's a constant invitation to me to go more and more profoundly into mystical practice, so that more and more of my fear and more of my despair and heartbreak can be purified, and that I can be taken over more and more by joy and purpose. And the second reason why I find it thrilling to be alive at this time is that I know in my bones that we will never have a time like this again, precisely because if we don't create a world movement of oneness in action, there will be no world. So it is showtime, and we are here together, and we have got to get going. So I just beg all of you to really go deep into the core of yourself, to find that natural state of unity with the whole of experience that I believe Panache is talking about, and from that to allow yourself to experience what Michael was talking about when he had that experience in Maui, to really experience the potentially terminal nature of our situation. You can't bear the depth of the heartbreak without being grounded in the divine. You'll simply go mad if you really awaken to the heartbreak without divine consciousness. So plunge into the deep practice first, and then open yourself, and then really ask yourself that question, what breaks my heart the most? And really create networks of grace, and really start doing something. There's been an awful lot of talk for an awful long time now about many of the things that Panache and myself and Michael have been talking about with, I think, great passion and great sincerity. This isn't a time for talk. This is a time for sacred action. We have no more time to talk. We must go forward soon. I realized this most acutely in Copenhagen when I was part of a delegation of spiritual leaders who did nothing much but talk, I must say, until a moment when the Aboriginals, the native peoples of Brazil, actually from a forest in Brazil, got on the platform and they just screamed at the United Nations. They imitated a forest burning, and they did this amazing yowling and howling of what it actually is to experience the burning of a forest and the burning of their place. And then they just looked around the room and said, "Don't you get it? There's a great storm coming, and you haven't even begun to put up the tents or organize anything." And they walked off the platform, and that was the only significant part of the conference as far as I was concerned. Up to that moment, I would quite easily have drunk any hemlock that was available. We have been talking so long and so wonderfully. Now we have to come together and act, otherwise there'll be no world. The alarming fact about the environment is that it is in much greater collapse than we have anticipated. And the most alarming fact of all facts is that we're releasing massive amounts of methane gas into the atmosphere, which could potentially secure human extinction in 15 years, according to some scientists. When will we really get it? And when will we stop talking, plunge into practice, unveil our natural passion and fire, come together and really make a new world? The clock is ticking. Let's do it. Let's go forward together and recreate everything.
Thank you, Andrew, for being so direct. You're certainly making very clear what your vision is and what we need to be doing now. Panache, can you come in for a minute? We've actually got only a couple of minutes. If you could come in for
sorry, Panache.
30 seconds, that would be perfect.
You know, this is the best panel I've ever been on. And it's been the best panel I've ever been on because, quite honestly, it's an absolute demonstration of what needs to be said. And I'm so happy that it's been expressed and articulated through both Michael and through Andrew. Because if there's anything that I would want you to take away from this is that you are not powerless, that you are in fact a difference maker, and that once you have gotten over yourself, there is a world that could lovingly use reminding. So in honor of that, it is my deepest wish that you discover your own soul signature. And to support you in that, there's a website. It's called 33daypath.com. And it's a loving journey where I guide you every day, and it's absolutely free, to lovingly start to embrace these parts of yourself that you've been taught to judge and condemn or repress or suppress. Ultimately, it is this repression or suppression that is killing us from within. We have to address it. And as Andrew so eloquently stated, it is important for us as a community to now embrace our shadow. Because what I've found actually is that the bigger your light gets, the bigger your shadow, it becomes evident to you. The more evident it becomes to you, and we must be willing to see what's there and to no longer live in denial of that which is present. And so 33daypath.com, go there, show up every day, participate in the practices and exercises and support yourself, discover your soul signature. Also, I'm so inspired by Andrew and I've been inspired by Michael for so long. You know, in the absence of Michael and Andrew and Neil, I wouldn't be here. And so visit panachdesai.com, and I'm actually, as soon as I get off the phone, going to start to implement a lot of what I've heard here myself. And I am so grateful that these incredible human beings and reminders have been placed in my path, because I know that there are so many places in my own life where I have yet to embrace all that I am. And today has served as an inspirational reminder that no matter who we are, there's still more to come. And so a deep bow to you both, my beloved brothers, and thank you for just allowing me to be here and to be in the experience of this dynamic exchange of spirit and dynamic demonstration of spirit in action. I'm just humbled and in awe of you both. So my love to you, and thank you, Steve, for organizing this wonderful platform, and I look forward to connecting with this incredible community again. And please know that it's in your hands. It's in your hands. Please know that. No matter what the world says, no matter what limitations have been spoken over you, it's in your hands. And the more we organize and the more we come together and the more we consciously participate in the world around us, the more we can begin to realize the vision that both Michael, Andrew, and myself have seen and have felt and experienced and know to be the truth. I love you all with all that I am, and I thank you for loving me.
Thank you, Panache, and I want to say, wow, we were moved by spirit to create this panel with you three, and I would echo the things you said, Panache, the incredible wisdom, and it's humbling to just be here with you all. So thank you so much. There's a clear invitation here for everybody to come down on the field. The time is now, and of course that's what Global Oneness Day stands for. It's time to awaken and embody oneness. Come down on the field, time for us all to be involved. So huge thank you and gratitude to you, Michael, Andrew, and Panache. I also want to thank all of the people that are listening here on the phone, webcast, and playback. We have an enormous audience who've registered for Global Oneness Day and who are participating live during this summit. I also want to thank the tens of thousands who are participating in on-the-ground programs, including in Monterrey, Mexico today, church services around the world this past Sunday, the Global Rhythm Circle, and other programs. This is our 5th year celebrating Global Oneness Day, and in the first 4 years alone, over 100,000 people registered to participate just in the summit. Global Oneness Day is becoming our Earth Day for an awakened humanity. I want to say replays are available for 48 hours, and if you didn't take notes, and I'm sure all of us would love to have notes here just for this panel, you can go to the Global Oneness Day site. There's an upgrade page where there are MP3s, transcripts, and CDs. Please also live any aha moments on the event page for this panel on the Global Oneness Day site. It's easy to post your comments and aha moments. Finally, I want to invite you to join in this conversation by posting on your social channels, and be sure to use hashtag G1Day so we can all follow the comments from all of you around the world. In closing, I want to thank my colleagues and partners who have been involved in planning and producing this event. Next up, we're going to be meeting grassroots leaders from Humanity's team in Australia, Nigeria, Portugal, Argentina, South Africa, and the United States. They're all involved with Global Oneness Day, and we're going to learn about important global initiatives being driven by these leaders. Don't miss this panel. Before we begin, we're going to enjoy 10 seconds to center ourselves in oneness with the divine and each other. We call this a oneness moment. We're going to begin our oneness moment now.